You have access to every song ever recorded, every movie ever made, and somehow you're bored. Ancient humans had no screens, no libraries, no distractions, just survival. And yet, there's no word for boredom in any language older than 150 years. Boredom isn't ancient. It's shockingly new. Something broke inside the modern mind, and it happened fast. The more choices we were handed, the worse it got. Ancient brains were wired for presence. Ours were rewired for escape. In the next 8 minutes, I'll show you exactly when it happened, why, and the one mental shift that can reverse it. We're not talking about people from the 1800s who read books by candlelight. We're not even talking about medieval peasants or ancient Romans. We're going back 50,000 years, 100,000 years, back to when there were no cities, no agriculture, no writing, no Netflix, obviously no internet, no books, no music as we know it, no art on walls. Just people sitting, staring at a fire, or a tree, or the sky for hours. Every single day. You'd think they'd lose their minds, right? You can't sit still for 5 minutes without checking your phone. So how did they survive entire lifetimes without a single notification, without a single thing to scroll through? The answer isn't just fascinating. It completely changes what we think boredom actually is, and why you feel it so much more than they ever did. First, let's settle something. Did ancient humans even experience boredom? For decades, scientists assumed the answer was no. The thinking went like this. Survival was hard. Every moment was hunting, gathering, running from predators, building shelter. There was no time to be bored. But then, in the 1960s, an anthropologist named Marshall Sahlins spent years living with the Hadza people in Tanzania and the San people of the Kalahari Desert. These are some of the last groups on Earth still living a lifestyle close to our ancient ancestors. And what he discovered was shocking. They worked, on average, about 15 to 20 hours per week. Not per day, per week. The rest of the time, they sat around, they talked, they played, they did nothing in particular. Solons called them the original affluent society. Not because they had wealth, but because they had something modern humans almost never have. Free time. Endless free time. So yes, they had the time to be bored. Way more than. I mean that you do. But here's the thing. They weren't. Why? Here's what's actually happening to you right now. Your brain is under attack. Every app on your phone, every website you visit, every ad you see is designed by teams of psychologists and engineers whose entire job is to hijack your attention. Facebook has a literal department called the attention team. TikTok's algorithm is so good at predicting what you want that you'll scroll for an hour without realizing it. This is new. This is only about 15 years old. Your brain evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in an environment where there was nothing trying to grab your attention artificially. No flashing lights, no autoplay videos, no infinite scroll. Ancient humans had boredom, sure, but they didn't have the attention economy. Nobody was competing for their focus. Nobody was engineering their dopamine response. So when they sat by a fire with nothing to do, their brain did what it was designed to do. It wandered, it thought, it processed. But your brain has been trained to expect a hit of dopamine every 10 seconds. A notification, a like, a new video, a message, anything. And when that doesn't come, brain doesn't wander. It panics. That panic is what you call boredom. Let me tell you about something that happened 40,000 years ago. Someone, somewhere in what is now Germany, picked up the bone of a dead vulture. And over the course of days, maybe weeks, they carved 5 small holes into it. Then they blew into it. And for the first time in history, a human being made music. Not because they had to, not because it helped them survive, but because they were sitting there with nothing to do and their brain said, what if I made this bone make sound? That's the difference. Ancient humans didn't consume entertainment, they created it. In 2010, archaeologists found 75,000-year-old shells at Blombos Cave in South Africa. The shells had been drilled through and coated with red ochre. Someone had spent hours, maybe days, making jewelry, not because they needed it, because they were bored and their hands wanted something to do. Boredom for them wasn't a problem. It was a creative trigger. But you don't create when you're bored. You consume. You open TikTok. You open YouTube. You scroll Instagram. And the moment you do that, your boredom goes away, but so does the creative impulse. Psychologist Sandi Mann ran an experiment in 2013. She made people copy numbers from a phone book for 15 minutes. The most boring task she could think of. Then she tested their creativity immediately afterward. The bored group obliterated everyone else because boredom forces your brain to generate its own stimulation, but only if you don't give it an easy way out. Here's something you probably haven't thought about. When an ancient human sat by a fire, staring at nothing, their brain was still working. It was processing the sounds of the forest, the smell of smoke, the feeling of heat on their skin, the texture of dirt under their feet. They were bored, but they were present. You, on the other hand, are never bored and never present. You're sitting in your room, but your mind is in 47 different places. You're watching a video, but you're also reading the comments, but you're also thinking about the text you need to send, but you're also wondering what to eat later. Neuroscientists have a name for this. They call it continuous partial attention. Your brain is never fully engaged with anything. It's always half distracted. And that creates a weird paradox. You're constantly stimulated, but never satisfied. You're never bored enough to create, but never engaged enough to feel fulfilled. Ancient humans didn't have that problem. When they were bored, they were deeply, fully, completely bored. And that deep boredom is what let their brain do the one thing your brain almost never gets to do anymore: rest and reset. Modern psychology has a term for what happens when your brain never gets to be bored. They call it cognitive overload. When you eliminate boredom completely, you eliminate the very thing that makes you creative, reflective, and human. There's a part of your brain called the default mode network. It only activates when you're doing nothing. No phone, no TV, no music, just sitting. And when it turns on, it's responsible for creativity, self-reflection, problem-solving, empathy, and imagination. But if you never give it a chance to turn on, it atrophies. You lose the ability to sit with yourself, to think deeply, to imagine. Ancient humans didn't fight boredom. They used it. They turned it into art, into music, into language, into philosophy, into everything that makes us human. You're fighting it. And in the process, you're losing the very thing that made your ancestors human. So here's what you do. Tomorrow, for just 10 minutes, sit somewhere with nothing. No phone, no book, no music, nothing. Just sit. Your brain will hate it. It'll panic. It'll scream for stimulation. Let it. Because on the other side of that panic is the same thing the person in the cave found 100,000 years ago. The same thing that made the flute. The same thing that carved the bead. The same thing that looked up at the stars and asked why. Boredom isn't the enemy. Constant stimulation is. Ancient humans were never bored the way you are because they never tried to avoid it. And if you stop avoiding it, you might just find what they found. The thing your brain has been searching for this whole time. Yourself. If this made you think, hit that subscribe button. And then, for just one moment, put your phone down and see what happens.